Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
It squirts out to center ice. Bruins win. Cross out the Montreal Canadiens and put the Boston Bruins on top. The Bruins have a new benchmark for regular season excellence.
Fans are standing. It's the third inning. And the pitch, a swing and a drive, left center field. It's got a chance. Grand slam. Grand slam. Nelson Velasquez. Cubs lead 8-7.
Here's Franchi Cordero. And he swings and hits a high fly to right. Back goes Gonzalez on the track, on the wall. She's gone. It is a 3-run home run for Franchi Cordero. Oh, you can bet the Ranchi on Franchi.
Hachimura on the right elbow. Hands it to LeBron. LeBron guarded by Torian Prince. Three-pointer for the tie. Good!
1 second left, and the horn sounds, and the Atlanta Hawks have won an all-expense-paid trip to Boston, where they'll play the Celtics on Saturday afternoon at 3:30. What a win for the Hawks.
I'm having the time of my life. Not only because of the room, right? Everyone asks what I love about Lincoln. The first thing I say is my players. But then too, I get to be around Coach Sat and Coach Roy every day who, you just look at, we are identical. All three of us are coaches' kids, right? We care a lot about football and we care a lot about kids. So me getting to wake up every day and go see those two guys is a dream come true for me.
Lots to get to today here on a jam-packed show of Coffee and Cream. Alongside Damon Benning and Andrew Rogers. Happy to have you with us here on a Wednesday.
Going up?
Oh, there you are.
On a Wednesday.
I was hoping for that yesterday, though. Remember?
Yeah, I was a day late and inevitably $1 short. That's why I had
look dapper.
That's why today. I had to pay the man his money.
Yeah, pay the man his money.
I have to. I have to run over to Millard North this morning for my assigning.
Let's go
with Nebraska Wrestling. I really appreciate it because it's very, 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 very difficult to get somebody to fill in for 44 minutes, right? Yeah. So you'll have to hold it down just for a smidge.
I can do that.
But at least 25 of it is BC. So I'm gonna
do something with BC that when you return, we're gonna do together as well.
Yeah. So I'm pretty excited because I got to be back for Aaron Graham, who's coming up at 9. Obviously BC at 8. Andy Kendeigh
right in the middle.
Yeah. So it's gonna be cutting it close to get back for AK because it's hard to just hop in the middle of an interview.
Just do it.
But he gave me some very good recommendations in Madison, and one of them is in essence maybe the best burger it's for sure top 3 that I've ever had, although it was extremely small.
Like slider small?
No, like old school BK double cheeseburger small.
BK.
I mean, they grilled that bed. It was on an open flame with the little bars in the back,
nice. Yeah.
The grill rack. Oh, it reminded me of old school Sinful Burger because I like more I like more of a grilled burger than
you like the char.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And it was small,
scrumptious,
but fantastic.
That's a dream come true for me.
Boy, wasn't he something?
He's amazing.
Listen, I'm
Team McGuire.
Shane, I'm Natalie Imbruglia. I'm torn.
Just to freaking grab some hot fries.
I'm torn. See,
torn about what?
That threw me. First of all, I don't want kids eating hot fries, but I'm anal and OCD, so I can get. That's just me, right? Like I'm not gonna put that on him. If they train their ass off and they're fit, man, knock yourself out with the occasional hot fry.
A lot of people laugh at the snacks, right? But that's real.
But I'm kind of torn because grown me is like, yeah, okay, a man grinds, and I think he's pretty smart, right? I think because there's a difference between being smart and being a good teacher. you're not really a good teacher until people know what you know. Right?
Like how much you know until they know how much you care.
So, but then I'm like, how would I feel at that age? Right? Would I be like,
as a player?
Yeah.
22 years old, being coached by a 24, 25-year-old.
I just, because I don't know. I don't think it would go over well, but it's, I can't, I'm speculating.
Well, and
so I'm torn. So I like some of the things I don't know if I want players sitting in my chair. Right?
See, that stuff doesn't bother me at all.
Okay. So
at all.
That's the difference. See, that's why I'm torn. Right. Because I'm not going to sit here and say, oh man, this is how you think like this. Right. I'm telling you what goes through my mind, and your perspective is vastly different because of your generation.
Sure. That is exactly what I was going to land the plane with.
It's a generational thing. Because did LP wear Coach Solich's trench coat that was more like a waistcoat for him?
I was told.
I
was told.
He pulled that thing off the door and he put it on. And we were deathly afraid. And Coach Solich walked in. And I mean, we like almost pooped a brick, right? He's like, put that coat back on the door. You know what I mean? But I don't know if we would have made a living doing, we certainly wouldn't have sat in his chair. You know what I mean? Or stuff like that. So it's kind of petty, self-admittedly, but it's because I'm older.
Well, and it's coaching style. What Garrett McGuire and Coach Rule are all about. They're kind of with that inclusivity environment. Not to say that Solich and T.O. were exclusive, but there was a method to their madness.
Yeah. So
and what that was is, hey, I'm the coach, you're the player. Now it's like, hey, for the last 3 months, I've established that you can have a voice too, but ultimately at the end of the day, I'm superior.
Yeah.
What I say goes.
That's funny.
So they feel that.
No, I'm with you.
And
That's
after 3 months, they could sit down in the chair and feel, oh, I'm not going to get, screamed at to put the coat back on the door.
Right. So when Coach Rule said about the transfer portal early, this gave you a glimpse in his personality. I think the transfer portal's good. Powers the players and holds them accountable for their decisions.
Check.
Right? Because that's ultimate. That's weird. That's because that's why you think it, David. Yeah. No, but I tell players that all the time. It's cool, man. The transfer portal is a nice mechanism, but guess what? It goes the other way too. Mm-hmm. So if you want that onus, hey man, knock yourself out, because that is closer to how the real world works, right? Your freedom of choice is not entitle you to freedom of consequences, right?
You don't just go into the transfer portal and find a team.
Yeah, right.
Sometimes, and I gave you the stats months ago, I think only 63% of transfer portal guys found a new home.
Dude, how about, did I see, this sounds high. Did I see 20% of Division I college basketball players were in the portal, have been in the portal?
You saw that.
That is staggering.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I'm cool. So I'm listening and I watch him work. So I offset that, right? Full disclosure. It's like, okay, let me pit it against how he actually works. And he's firm and he's kind of a little militant. So I like that. But then when I listen to him, it's like, oh, okay. I'm
and he's still young. So he doesn't get his message across
very
like
much.
Coach Rule.
Very much so.
It will come
very
as time comes.
Yeah.
But, I hate the fact that people are still laughing about his age. Shane, can you play Rule 4, please?
Yeah, this was odd.
I think it's been great. I mean, I think unfairly, I don't know if it's unfairly, but he's had a lot of people question, him. Right, which really honestly hurts us in recruiting. We're out there recruiting and people are following us and they're like, well, I keep hearing this narrative. It's coming from our own people. I'm like, so we have to battle that a little bit. But, I always look at things in my life at what I want my son to play for him, and I'd want my son to play for Garrett. I don't know if you guys probably don't see the second half of practice, do you? We do team outside and they throw 7-on-7 inside. He runs the whole passing game. He knows the quarterbacks, progressions, running backs, tight ends, receivers. So I think I think the receivers are one of our stronger groups are coming on, and I think he's done a really good job. So I think as he starts to churn out NFL prospects, the top recruits in the country will realize that if they play for Garrett, they're not going to just get someone who's a hype guy. They're going to get a really good coach who's also going to care about them off the field.
Rule's not here to lie to you. That's true.
Yeah.
What he's saying is 100% true. I get it's fun for people to poke fun in the beginning, right? Take a guy that's 24 years old and be like, wow, make a baby joke, whatever you want to call it, a high school teenager. Oh, he just is driving a car, whatever you want to say. At some point, you got to grow out of that. Like, you just got to grow past that.
The people saying it or
the
coach?
People saying it.
Oh, got you. I got you.
On like either social media or just to their friends.
I got you.
Media members are just as fault sometimes. So I'm not just pinning this on fans.
So is that who he's talking about when he says our own?
I think he just means the fan base. Like if Joe Schmo tweets something out, that's getting into a recruit's hands in one way, shape, or form.
No, I hear you.
The impact of your voice. Every kid is on social media nowadays. It's secondhand nature for these recruits to be present on the platform and checking out how the program is operating when they're not there. So because of that, you really have to be careful about what you're saying. And if you are joking, you got to, how do I say this? Because I don't want to take away somebody's freedom, right? I don't want to say like, hey, you can't talk like this. But you just have to be cautious and cognizant of that moment and who it could potentially impact. And if it is having as big of an impact as Coach Rule is saying, the jokes have to stop, and they have to stop now. Talented young people are in this world. You can be 20 years old and still be the guy. I've experienced similar things because I have been in a highly competitive industry for the last 8 years. I know how hard it takes to get here. I know there's people at home that are probably saying, I can do that job better than he can. I know that. But if I'm a 20-year-old financial advisor, nobody's tweeting that, hey, I'm a really young, guy that can help you invest with your money. Remember the FDU kid during the NCAA tournament?
Yeah.
The lookalike 16-year-old or whatever he was, an SID for FDU was getting a ton of attention. How about we, instead of put his age to the side, what about his quals? Why is he sitting in that chair? I know FDU's a small school, but he's obviously doing something right to sit there, to sit in that chair and cover that team in that moment. That's what people need to remember with Coach McGuire. It didn't just happen overnight. He didn't just get this first big boy job and now he's taken off. He's had the resume built up to put himself in this position to be successful. He's been a coach's son forever. What did Josh Fleek say? He said, hey, if I wasn't going to go to Nebraska, I was going to go play for Joey.
Yeah.
He wants to play for a McGuire. So let's take that into consideration, that whether you're 25 or 45, that you can coach.
What did he say? How soon did you know he was going to be a coach? And my man said, I don't know, like
sophomore year of high school.
Grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fleeks was interesting. But you know what? So I can't, again, I have to be very cognizant not to grade and judge, right? Because that's his first time in front of a media throng like that. And I didn't, this is crazy, but I'm a super straight shooter, right? I didn't love the lines of questions yesterday, but I understood completely why they had to be asked. Because if guys are gone and they come back and there's this story and we don't know the story, like you have, I think it's your job, right, to ask. But once I got the first feel of the first answer, I can tell he doesn't want to go there, right? So I don't know, but I'm kind of a baby, right? So it's like, baby's not the word. I'm very sensitive to other people being uncomfortable. So I don't know if I would go in and take advantage of somebody's youth. I've said this forever since I've been doing this job. I'm not one of those guys that would go in to chase just to get taking advantage of a kid's expense, right? Because we've had student athletes before that we've interviewed, and it's like, gosh, I could get what I wanted to out of them, but I just don't think sometimes that it's the time and the place. And so when I'm watching IGC, and I feel like I have a decent handle on the backstory, when he said he didn't want to leave, people immediately, and this is why you have to ask the questions. So like that's why I'm not upset. I just was uncomfortable with it. Like I think I know what he's saying, right? Because I know that there was some back and forth on his health and how to be utilized. And the stuff about wide receiver 1 is nonsense. It wasn't even a thing. I don't know where that came from. I honestly,
some narrative was started.
It's
overshadowed everything.
It's utter crap. It is absolute garbage. There was never this thing where I need to be wide receiver 1. As I'm told, through a couple of regimes and a player. So I think, if the truth is somewhere in the middle, I get their perspective.
Question to butt in. Sorry. Didn't Mickey Joseph say that though? Didn't he say that?
Yes.
At one point?
He didn't go into detail, but he alluded to it.
Okay.
Right?
I remember reading
how to use him. How injured was he? Now remember, I'm going to say this and I'm going to keep it pushing. Parents have insight too, right? So if my son or daughter is fudge, take Caleb's back or when he broke his back or his collarbone, right? It's like there are things that I don't want that they may want, or vice versa, that a timeline says. And if I get the sense that you're not for him, I may suggest that you go someplace else. I'm the parent, right? I'm going to have that conversation. So we took a lot of things and we ran with it yesterday, but I'm okay because I think that's the beauty of media and news. Because I trust, and plus I like so many of those guys and gals. Like, the intentions are good, right? They want a story. It's just sometimes he's just uncomfortable. And it's a hard story, right? It's murky.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, ooh. But again,
he handled it well.
Right.
Really well.
He came out.
You would not have thought something deeper.
He came out of it okay. He said my family covered me. Like, I could just tell by the terms he's using, like kind of what they're about emotionally, right?
And he was calm. Nothing worked him up.
Very much so. But as I'm listening, I'm like, follow up. And one of the follow-ups was a couple of answers to other questions later. So I was like, oh boy, okay. He told a little. It's okay. Yesterday was one of those days where I was like, I was kind of proud of the players' composure. And I hope at some point, because if you're right, and I didn't ask him, if Coach Rule is saying from our own, I hope it's maybe the fans. I don't think it's media. And I don't, I certainly hope it's not like
internal.
No, there's no way.
Well, I thought that's where you're going with that. There's hope.
No, there's nah, because the cool thing about his job is he's hired guys that don't want his job.
Right.
So when you're surrounded by people that don't want your job, there's a certain level of trust, and I think he's vetted that pretty well. But there was a lot yesterday, and Coach Rule has been very reflective over the past. Remember last week when I asked you, man, I think he's talking to his coaches. I'm more convinced now than ever he was talking as much to his staff
as he was to the players.
And so, listening to Coach McGuire, and it's just different. And I think you're right. You hit the nail on the head. For his age, he's not going to be the orator we want him to be. But that's why I like when Coach Rule was like, watch him work.
Right. And celebrate the fact
Understood.
that he is where he is today for the reasons that came before him. And celebrate that. Don't knock him for it.
Let's talk about speaking things into existence. Hey, when he's putting guys in the NFL, it'll be a desirable place. Or, you know, he you know, did you see the second half? You guys
Coach
see the second
Rule has his back.
No question.
Yeah, has his back.
And I'm telling you, when you're empowered to know that somebody is for you, like you can do anything. Right? Bad shooters can turn into good shooters if you empower them that it's okay to miss a few.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it's just, I don't know.
Unless you're Masvidal, because if you miss that 3 late in your career, then you got to just hang up.
It was an interesting. They're a little surly. That staff is a little surly right now. I don't know exactly what's going on. Recruiting was brought up a couple of times. Like, get a little edgy. Little edgy. Those messages, I think, are as much for us as anybody.
Yeah. Let's go to the phones. Ronald's on line 1. Shane, bring him on. Ronald, good morning. You're on the show. What's up, man? How you doing, Ronald?
We got him. Shane, you want to bring him up? Ronald, you there?
Looks like we lost him. Ronald, call back, though. Interested to hear your thoughts. 888-638-4876 for anybody else out there that wants to be involved on the show as well. But, you know, I guess more thoughts on this, because I'm all about, DB, having the best guy for the job. Like, that's it. I don't care what the pool of resumes look like. I don't care what the cover letter says from one person to the other. If you have the best qualifications, you get the job. The most talented person should get the job. That's not the world we live in today, unfortunately. Sometimes it's, you know, how old you are. Sometimes it's how you look. It's just that type of thing. And I've experienced similar things in local news before I got here about some of those stops. And I think that's why I take a lot of this personally for Garrett, because you get knocked for how you look or how old you are. And that's just, I guess, until you see it, you don't really believe it. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't have to be that. You shouldn't have to sit there and wait for the results. He got here for a reason. He didn't just Coach Rule just didn't bring in people he liked. That's not there. Shane, do we have him back? Is he here? Ronald, are you on the show?
How are we not getting Ronald?
Yep, I don't know. But
you know what I was going to say when you were saying that? You try being a minority.
Mm-hmm. No,
you know, it's like, I mean,
and I get it. Like, I understand what you're saying too. And I know that, you know, hearing it from me and the way that I look, some people are probably going to be like, oh, okay, Andrew.
No. And the reason why I'm just giving you the floor to go, well, number one, respect, but two, because I hear it a lot since we've been doing this show together. Like, I know, like, sometimes I think you just want people to see your good works, right? And leave it at that, right? It's like, am I good at what I do? Am I still growing? Am I where I need to be? Like, all that other stuff is just stuff.
Well, I'm telling you, man, when I worked in the news, there were diversity quotas that had to be hit. I got overlooked, and I'll say this too when we come back. I got overlooked for people that were much younger than me coming out of college, even though I had the experience, because I looked a certain way. Yeah. And, you know, that's just how it is, right? Sometimes that is how it is. We'll be back.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes.
Check, check, check. Hello? Hello?
Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Oh my gosh, it's night and day. A lot of people laugh at the snacks, right? But that's real. When you have Eric Gilbert in there at 8:30, 9 o'clock, right? A tight end coming to join my room just to freaking grab some hot fries and obviously like steal away to kind of teach him a play because just the familiarity I was with the offense. And then also, like I told the guys, like that's their office, not necessarily mine. So when you see Billy Kemp, Josh Fleek sitting in my chair running the remote, it's a lot more powerful than me sitting there teaching them.
Did he say frickin'?
I don't know. Maybe.
Like to grab some frickin' hot fries, or was I just like adding in a word there.
I don't know. I would say that. So if he did, man,
I missed that the first time.
We like, we could be boys.
Yeah, because that's you.
I would. Yeah, I definitely say that all the time.
Yeah, or you probably say fudging.
Just to freaking grab
yeah, he did.
I
heard that.
I say fudge. Like fudge.
I love it. Put some emphasis on those hot fries, Garrett.
I say that all the time.
Just to freaking grab some hot fries and.
Man, if you were having a snack in the room, would yours be celery then? Because you kind of knocked the hot fries.
I hate celery.
First segment.
No,
your DBs.
My go-to if it was gonna be chips would be Poppables.
Oh, the new ones.
Just salt, like the salt.
Salt and vinegar.
No,
just salt.
Yeah, I hate vinegar.
Oh, sorry. Touchy subject.
I am not a salt and vinegar guy. It's just weird, man. Like I'm getting all these ideas now. People have ideas of what Coach Rule we're talking about, and I'm not sure what's what. Maybe it was media, maybe it was local here. Asian Wyatt says there was a tiff going on. I don't know if it wasn't tiff. I added that in. My apologies, Asian Wyatt. I want to be accurate. There was a back and forth, he said, between Shanley and Kenny Bell.
Interesting.
Over his age. He said maybe that was it. I don't know. But
Kenny.
Yes, Kenny. I do know that as intentional as Coach Rule is, he has specific examples. He wouldn't just say that
to say it.
And he's like, from our own, right? So he's just there's finally this human component that I actually think I like, right? Because they are a little edgy, little surly. And maybe it's that stage in spring, right? When you can start counting down the low single-digit days till the spring game and kind of what you've been through, like tempers, it gets like this, right? You talk to a guy at 9 o'clock, we can ask him, towards the tail end of spring, fights escalate a ton. It's a temperament because coaches know this is the springboard. It's the catalyst till they see you again in summer, and you get to kind of do it all over again because then you just get back to workout. So there's this sense of, man, we got to get it in.
Mm-hmm. Which is why when Rule answered that question about tackling yesterday too, he's like, yeah, great question. We're getting better, but we're not perfect yet.
Yeah,
we're not all the way there yet.
So you know what he's talking about tackling, and I hope people don't think. First of all, I'm not just defending him to be defending him, but we've gone through 3 variations of tackling since I've been teaching tackling. And I think the staffs that I've been on, and if you watch my little league, my youth kit teams play, I think tackling is something I take pride in. I'm not saying that I teach it better than anybody else, but people have come to me for tackling circuits, tackling demos. And I used to be a hawk tackle guy. I used to be a gator tackle guy. I used to be, eyes through the thighs. So I know what it's like to kind of keep evolving, and he's spot on, right? When you take your head out of it, you open up, you open up some other options for your body to get in the way. And, with leverage, do I really care what side of the ball your head is on? I don't. I want more run throughs. We use the exact same, as Caleb told you, the exact same terminology now. We're same shoulder, same foot. We are drive for 5. We are drive through contact. And so I don't want people to be like, oh man, these guys, and I'm speaking more to the former, to the current. Tackling is like televisions, right? A year later, and they're kind of old, and they've made some adjustments, and you don't want that TV anymore. That's kind of how the evolution of tackling has gone. Remember, Pete Carroll, nobody's paying the Seahawks to come do tackling circuits anymore. 10 years ago, it was all the craze.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody's paying for those coaching clinics now. I'm just giving you an example, right? So it's not an indictment so much as, man, they didn't do this, because I don't think that's what it's about. I just think the evolution of the game is what he's trying to walk us through. And and unapologetically, right? It's just how it goes.
Yeah, and that's just who Coach Rule is. Michigan Lance on line 1. We'll try to get Ronald 2 back eventually because we got the phone system fixed. We hope, right, Shane? Let's bring in Lance.
We're gonna try it.
Lance, good morning. What's up, man?
Hey, you better get it right, man. Hey, DB.
Yo.
So my son is here. I'm taking him to school late, and
what's up, Langston?
Giving him a little break.
Good morning.
Oh, hold on. Say that again, DB.
Good morning, Langston.
Good morning.
Good morning. What's up, Coach?
So he's never heard the new show, right? Because he's in school since we're an hour ahead.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm calling, and he's looking at me like, man, who's he talking to? What show is he calling? And so he said, man, I said, well, it's DB show. He was like, oh, I wonder how they knew you. He said, did he bring the phone answer with him?
Oh, Shane. The phone answer. Oh, shoot.
I said, man.
LGZ off the heezy. Man.
I said, man, he's a producer. He's like, oh. I said, hey, yeah, he did bring him with him. It was like the phone answer. Oh, man. I said, we know that's broken English, but maybe not right, but still.
What's up?
It's still funny. Hey, so you were talking about, it's funny, you talk about these guys and Andrew, your experience. It's unfortunate that, you get looked over because of minority quota. And the whole thing about minorities wanting to have opportunities, it's not to meet a quota. It's just that, or if I talk about black coaches or black leadership in sports where there's predominantly black people playing it, like there's a lot of minorities or black men or women that get passed over that are qualified. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the qualified people,
right?
Not somebody that's not qualified, that's a minority to get hired just to meet a quota. The issue is, and you're right. There's white male and white women that get looked over as well. But unfortunately, the majority of that happens to, especially in the sport industry, where it looks like whether white coaches or white media covering black players, the majority of black players, and it's like there has to be more. We know there's more out there that are qualified. Those people should be given the opportunity to do that and represent that.
I couldn't agree more.
And I don't care about, me, DB knows I don't care about age. Like, I don't care about the young guy at Nebraska getting the opportunity. It's just that, man, it just seems like it's always a white male that gets it, no matter the age. And then when it's young, it's like, dang. And so no matter where it's at, and that's the struggle. That's the issue or struggle that we have, and sometimes that gets mixed up because we have so many false people representing even black or minority, like Black Lives Matter. Like, that was misrepresenting us, and that's why I never represented that because I knew that wasn't for anything for the right reason. You know what I'm saying? And so I don't stand up for just anything black or everything black. No, I stand up for people who are black that are right, that do things the right way, that are qualified, that get looked over.
Same, 100%. That is such a real answer, Lance. I appreciate that a ton because it's talent and qualifications over anything. It just shouldn't matter what you do, what you look like, whatever it is. That right there probably encompasses both. Like in regards to discrimination, both things into one. That was a great answer.
That's the part people don't get to hear all the time when they just kind of, race. But, he's actually an equal opportunist, because he gets on minorities all the time too. Like, it's not just, he's pretty good with that stuff.
And I understand it's present everywhere. In your first segment, I was just giving an example of how it affected me. DB's got examples of how it affected
apologize.
him, and I'm not going to apologize for that. Not one bit, because it's a real thing, and it still happens today. I'll be solo next. We'll see DB in about 45.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
I have to watch the tape to see. The retention seemed like it was pretty good. We introduced some new situations, some new things. So kind of the challenge that I gave them last week of coming back this week, it seemed like a lot of guys, I didn't think there was a ton of missed assignments or anything. I've learned over the years, like not to judge practice based upon the way I feel out of practice, good or bad, right? So I like to watch the tape because, we're getting to the point now where so many guys are doing things right that when they do have maybe a bad play, it might just be one or two. So I'm anxious to see this tape though. This is big for us. Like we're kind of one of those teams that like throughout the course of the week build up and have really good Saturdays. And I want us to be a little faster starting. So just trying to get that done. So I had a team meeting today, which I normally don't do, just to kind of challenge them a little bit. So if it wasn't what I wanted, I had only myself to blame. So we'll see how the tape goes.
Hey, welcome back. 888-638-4876 if you'd like to get involved, especially you, Ronald. Give us a call back. 888-638-4876. We got the computer fixed. We heard from Michigan Lance last segment. And Lance, to answer your question on YouTube, which you can always get involved there too, send us a comment. DB is not using the restroom. He is going over to Millard North for Maya's signing day. So he'll be back in about 45-ish minutes, that taking place at 8 o'clock. So he's heading over to the school now. Wherever you catch us, 590 ESPN Omaha. We're live on Twitter. We're live on YouTube. We'll be on KFOR in Lincoln starting at 9. And the clip you heard coming back was Coach Rule touching on a question if the guys came out with that certain energy, that certain intensity after the 5-day break that they had. And cautiously optimistic, I would say. He was like, yeah, I'm pretty sure they came in with the good intention, but he needs to go back and watch the film in order to be sure. But
day after day after day,
if he has an inkling at all that practice went well, it probably went pretty well. Now, we spent the majority of the first two segments talking Coach McGuire, his age. I appreciate the fact that Rule is there to play defense. I also appreciate the fact that the room itself is playing defense for Coach Rule. And we can get into some of those clips now, Shane. Let's get into some IGC clips. Let's get into
gosh. It's night and day.
What, the switch from talking Coach Rule, Coach McGuire to the players? I don't know.
Could be.
I think they go hand in hand with one another. We can also talk Josh Fleeks, which I think Fleeks he's interesting when it comes to the relationship with Coach McGuire. As I said previously, it was either Nebraska or it was Texas Tech. That's it. Those were his two options. He wanted to play for McGuire. And the reason for that is he grew up with them. He went to high school with Garrett. He played for Joey at one point in time. And it just goes back to trust, right? Something that I like to, I want to put this on a t-shirt sometime. And it may already be on a t-shirt, but I was thinking about this last night. You can't have us without trust, or you can't have trust without us. That's how I said it. And I thought that was moving, because unless it's this all in the family approach, how do I know I can trust you? Like, are you ever going to not have my back? Are you ever going to shut down on me when we should talk something out? Are you ever going to not receive information well if I am either adding something to an area of expertise that you're greater in than I am? Trust is a big thing. And that's something that they lean on. That's
a really good question.
That not only the players lean on with each other, but with the coaching staff as well. And the coaching staff leans on their players too. You wouldn't hear McGuire saying that Billy Kemp and Josh Fleeks can sit in his chair and coach unless there was some trust there, some trust built up. You can't have trust without us, US. Then you would just have TRT. And I don't know what that means.
Really, everybody?
I don't know what that acronym would end up standing for. But can you play a Josh Fleeks clip for me, Shane, talking about his relationship with Coach Rule? Because he had about 4 of them. But I want to hear at least one. Play one of the ones at the beginning.
I mean, yeah, it is, because he definitely treats me like I'm a player and not a brother. Yeah. So, yeah, it is pretty different and fun as well. Yeah.
I like that answer because it goes back on something he said earlier on in his interview, is that Coach McGuire is his brother. When they played together in high school, there wasn't a big age gap. Still isn't a big age gap. But there's a separator, and Fleeks recognizes that separator of, hey, I know he's my coach in these moments, but I also know I can hang out with him in these moments. And you have those feelings even in your own work, social life, whatever it is. Like, there are times where I could, one of my bosses is here right now. CG is in the building. We both play the Nintendo Switch. Like, we can always kick back and relax and do that. But are you making fun of me because I have a Nintendo Switch, Shane? Huh?
Hey, you made the switch. I didn't.
I did make the switch. But there are also times, and it's different because, he's about 10 years older than I am. But there's still times to where I know who my superior is in the building. Whenever we have a work meeting, it's work. Whenever they're in practice, it's practice. When they're outside of practice, then they can be friends. But when they're in practice, there's one voice and one person to listen to. You can add your 2 cents, but at the end of the day, what Coach McGuire says goes in that room. So I like how they balance that relationship.
So would video games be just the opposite when it comes to Coach McGuire being young and everybody kind of ripping on him for his age or questioning the age thing. Would video games be just the opposite, where like if you're too old, you shouldn't be playing video games?
I don't think so. Everybody can play a video game.
Everybody?
Yeah, the old consoles are still out there. The Super Mario movie is out right now. And
really everybody.
I believe I saw BC playing, and we're talking to BC in the next segment. I believe I saw him playing the original NES the other day. Which,
so
Shane, I don't know if you know, that was a Nintendo system, the first one.
I have one.
Oh, really? How would you know?
They don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care. And
did you get it right when it came out?
Just to freaking grab some hot fries and.
Yeah, I'm sure you were eating hot fries. Were hot fries out then?
No, I don't think so.
Thanks, Garrett. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. So,
you done?
All righty. Thank y'all. Y'all have a good day.
Hey, keep them coming, Shane.
What's up, y'all? Say. How y'all doing?
I'm still laughing at the fact that some people on social media, tagging me in some posts, are telling me how I can age myself. Shane, maybe you can help me out. What do you think the best way to age myself would be? Would it be to grow a beard? Would it be to lose my hairline? Or would it just be a combination of the two?
It might be a combination of the two, but definitely grow a beard.
What about grayness? What if I added some gray?
If you could add some gray, but I just hope that.
I hope that's not disrespectful in any way.
Hey, the touch of gray, right? Isn't that a Just for Men product? Touch of gray.
No, I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure it is, Garrett. I'm pretty sure it is. But ultimately, and here's kind of where I'll rest my point on Garrett McGuire, is the people in the room don't disrespect him for his age. Josh Fleeks, Billy Kemp, the older guys in the room, don't look at Garrett McGuire and say, yeah, you're too young to coach me. In fact, I think it's more of a relationship thing. I would relate more to that. I love the fact that Coach Rule brought up DJ Moore. DJ Moore's the same age, if not older, than Garrett McGuire. I don't really exactly know DJ's age. But the fact of the matter is, one of the best receivers in the NFL would go to bat for Garrett McGuire.
Yeah, I would anticipate AJ practice some today, non-contact. I expect he would practice on Thursday full. I'm hoping he does.
And I bet most receivers that he coached would go to bat for Garrett McGuire.
I bet you they would.
Doesn't matter how young you are.
No.
Doesn't matter what you look like.
No.
The best person for the job is in that job right now. And it also, think about this too, the best fit for the job. Who fits in the Matt Rule system? Is it a guy like Garrett McGuire who's hype, who's always pumping up his guys, running practice, and coming with care in all of his approach? That's a Matt Rule guy. You have to find the right guy for the role, and that's Garrett McGuire. Now, before we go to break, I want to take a moment and tell you about Zipline Brewing. Zipline is one of the best. And I really like Zipline's dear old Nebraska brew. I actually have one in my fridge. I may have to drink it later. I was telling the guys when I walked in, I'm like, didn't get a lot of sleep last night. I listened to the presser a couple of times, and then I was watching the Lakers game, and of course that ran long.
Those guys were jacked up to get back in the building.
They were jacked up to get back in that game. I couldn't believe LeBron passed that ball at the end of Schroeder, but hey, clutch players make clutch shots, Shane.
It's been awesome.
But I thought about Conley before they went into overtime as well. But before we go to break, check out the downtown Omaha tap room. It's across the street from TD Ameritrade Park, a block from CHI, embedded between Slowdown and Film Streams. It's designed to quench your thirst for action, pouring fresh pints directly from the iconic shipping container. They promise to keep up with the fast pace of your busy life. It's a cool location. It's right there by the ballpark. If you're looking for your next hot spot to go relax, watch a game, get a beer, check out Zipline's downtown Omaha tap room. Excuse me. When we come back, we will talk to Brian Chrisopherson. BC and I have a lot to break down, and here I'm going to tease this. I'm going to ask BC to give me some accolades, like a mini award show. I want the MVP of the first 10 practices. I want the coach of the first 10 practices, the offensive player of the first 10 practices, defensive, and newcomer. Maybe even Let's throw one more in. How about the most improved award?
You're not asking for much.
Nope.
That should be pretty easy to digest.
I think it would be easy to decipher too, because I have my guys, but I'm interested to hear what BC has to say. He's coming your way next. Stick around. It's Coffee and Cream.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
You know, I never wanted to leave, really, in the first place, to be honest with you. Didn't expect last year to go the way it did necessarily. So I just felt like, you know, it's almost like a fresh start, you know, for me, for everybody on the team, you know, coaches, players. So, you know, I was fortunate enough to be able to, you know, be given the opportunity again and just come show what I can do with the new staff and everything. So.
IGC yesterday with a very mature answer to the question asked. Why did you want to make that initial switch? And he's like, I didn't really want to immediately. But you never really know how the course of the season's going for a certain person. But it's great to see him back in a Husker uniform, and it's also great to see him as a big part to this wide receiving room. And I think he will continue to turn heads all season long. Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, just past the 8 o'clock hour, live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. About to be joined by Brian Chrisopherson, senior writer for Husker 24/7 at Husker 24/7 BC, as we do on a Wednesday. Shane, let's bring him in. BC, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Andrew. How you doing?
Good, man. You're stuck with me. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. You're good company.
Oh, wow. What a guy. You still didn't add me to your foursome group, though, for that new golf course. So I don't know how great of company I am.
That invite might be coming, so keep checking your mailbox.
Oh, okay. Is it a handwritten invite or?
Yeah. That's the only way you do it to that course. It's very like Augusta Ease, where you gotta do it old school. Yeah. It has a special stamp on it and everything.
Yeah. All right. I'll send you my address. I'll send it by carrier pigeon.
All right.
Hey, a worry yesterday was the team coming back from a 5-day break and looking lackadaisical. Did you get that sense at all? I know Rule said that the retention seemed good, but I want to get your sense at if you felt that it was a little slower than other practices you attended.
I don't know if I would say that. We got to keep it real with folks. I mean, we go over there for about 30 minutes on these deals, and I really appreciate it because we get to take some video that people see. We get to take those photos that people, and a couple observations that pop up here and there. But some of it is the stationary work they're doing at the beginning where I don't think we see things full bore, if you get what I mean. So sometimes it's hard to give an answer on a question like that. I do know that Rule said after the practice, one thing that's kind of interesting about this team is they pick up steam throughout the week, and he's working on sort of fixing that. Like by Saturday, they're kind of humming along, and he likes what it's looking like, but there's a build up to it, or at least that's how I took what he said. So that's something you probably want to, get ironed out as you go along the way, and maybe suggest that yesterday there was, a couple things off here and there, but if there's a time to work it out, it's right now in April as opposed to 4 months from now.
Right. Yeah. Because, I guess I was thinking more from the side of it's probably pretty cool to see the other side of Coach Rule when things did or do start to slow down, how he continues to fire up his guys. And I was curious if you picked up on anything new or saw anything that only a person at practice would see in the moment. But no, I'm completely with you. It is kind of hard when you only are there for about 30-ish, 40-ish minutes. But you're right. Being grateful just to be there is a nicety. Not a lot of media members get that with a program.
Yeah. It is. The thing I notice about Rule during a practice is he's very comfortable anywhere on the field. Like you can't really categorize him as just like an offensive guy or a defensive guy, or he's over here. You sort of see him everywhere throughout these weeks we've been there. One time he'll be like really involved in special teams, another time he'll be over talking to some media guys, kind of getting to know them for a few minutes while we're there. And then, but that's an interesting, I think, difference maybe from some past Husker head coaches where we probably said like, okay, Frost is an offensive guy, Riley is an offensive guy, Bo Pelini was a defensive guy. And then you're like, there was this idea like they're focused on this part of the ball. The other side can go over there, like if someone will handle that. And they had guys working on it. Don't get me wrong, but it does feel like Rule from the beginning has more of a voice probably over the whole team. I don't want to say as a CEO, but just as someone who's he can go station to station, and it feels like he's pretty involved with every position group.
Right. I think CEO is a good comp, though. I mean, he really is that type of guy that can oversee a ton of different areas. Now, one area in particular that we heard from yesterday was the wide receiving room. And that was an attention getter DB brought up last week when we were talking to you. And, we were kind of unsure with our feelings toward the room. Do we know enough about them to feel comfortable with them? That was the initial question. But the new one, after hearing from, the guy at the helm and a pair of players, did they give you enough to feel good about the room where they are currently today?
I feel better about them from what I've heard than I did at the start of spring. Part of that is I feel like Isaiah Garcia Castaneda, who you played at the top, I think can be a factor. I think he's really jumped back into it. It seems like they really like him. They've, his dependability that he's had since coming back, and just, he's tough in space. I mean, I know he kind of disappeared after the opener, but he did have a few catches that showed us examples of what he can do when he gets the ball in his hands against Northwestern. I know he had the fumble that was controversial. Husker fans thought he was down, but on that play, people might remember he made 2 or 3 guys miss and got about 15 extra yards before the fumble. And I was really excited after that first week about what type of player he might be. So maybe we're going to get to see more of that. It seems like Xavier Betts, we've talked about him on the show before this spring, and just how I would say it doesn't look like a guy who missed football last year. And that's the biggest compliment you can give. And it sounds like he's working really hard in the classroom and all that stuff. So that's good. I like the fact that Billy Kemp's at the top, and there's just, okay, you know what you got in him. It feels like the coaches are already that way. They even talked about like bringing him down a notch with some of his work this spring, because he understands what to do. I think Marcus Washington remains an important guy. We shouldn't forget about him. He was second on the team in receiving yards and catches and all that. And so that Josh Fleeks is going to matter. One thing that's interesting, though, Andrew, is he did say, he slipped this in, with those incoming freshmen. He's like, there's room for them. We're going to need them to make some flashes, So that doesn't tell me that people should be concerned, but it tells me that there's still a door open for guys to make their move if you're talking about players who aren't even on campus yet.
Yeah, keep it right there, because you mentioned 4 guys, and then you alluded right there to the newcomers. But if you had to choose one guy that would emerge as the guy out of that room, who would it be?
I guess Jaden Doss. I'm a big Jaden Doss fan just because he's so versatile, and he's, I think, a jack of all trades receiver. And this offense, when you hear Marcus Satterfield talk about it, he spoke about positionless players, and Jaden Doss sort of pops up as sort of that. You always got to be careful when you say this, but like the Deebo Samuel guy who, you could just move around a lot of different places. So he would be one guy, but I do think there is room for one of the speedsters, and I don't know which one it's going to be. That would be just dart throwing with a blindfold on. But, whether it's Jeremiah Charles or Jalen Lloyd or Malachi Coleman, I think one of those guys, Bryce Turner for that matter, one of the fastest guys in the country, could pop up and have a role as just that guy who can stretch the field. Maybe he doesn't have to know everything inside and out, right? But if he's the type of player who he can give you, even if it's 4 to 6 catches throughout the course of the season, like he makes that 55-yard, play that we're sort of writing about after one of the games in September or something, that type of guy. I think there's room for something like that with the newcomers where you could have a niche role.
Hey, before I get into a little fun thing I want to do with you, and I'll preface it. I want to I want you to think back to the first 10 practices of Nebraska spring football. And I want to get your MVP. I want to get your coach, like your offensive player, your defense player. So like kind of think about that while I ask you this question too, because a lot in the first segment, I was talking a lot about Coach McGuire and the criticism that, he's been taking for his age and, how, gosh, I don't want to use the term meaningful because that's not the word I'm looking for, but just when Coach Rule said this is affecting recruiting, like that meant something. That meant something to this program. That meant something to just the state itself. And I wanted to kind of gauge your thoughts on McGuire's age and why people shouldn't be like that narrative should just go away. And I know it's hard because seeing is believing and they're waiting for the results because this is a results driven business. And until you get the results, you can't really shy away from that so-called narrative. But if it really is having a long-term effect on the program, that stuff needs to stop.
I would say the reason why the topic doesn't really have to hang there is he belongs. I mean, he does. He's just like Matt Rule's as sure of Garrett McGuire, I feel like, as anybody on his staff. I mean, when you hear the way he talks about him, I mean, this is a guy who lived in the coach's room when he was like 8 years old. I mean, his dad is, I know you aren't just what your father was necessarily, but his dad is like one of the great college football coaches in my book, and Joey McGuire. And also Garrett spent time, as Rule pointed out the other day, around some tough coaches. Like I think there's this impression because he's got the boyish face and he's young and all this that, like maybe he's a pushover over there for those players. And I think that's the furthest thing from the truth. So I would say in my time covering this beat, which is honestly, it's about 20 years. I've seen coaches of all ages that have had success and some that have failed miserably, guys who have come here who had resumes that were 2 to 3 decades long, but they didn't necessarily have, there were certain guys, I won't name them, but they didn't have the drive when they got here. They didn't have that, that extra, like they're just hungry. Garrett McGuire's hungry. And besides that, I think he just has an insane amount of knowledge for football. Even like I will say in the brief time we are over there, I dialed in on Garrett McGuire the other day, and there's no detail that's left under a stone with him. So I think people should rest easy that position group is in good hands. And I think right now, he talks about sharing his office with those players and stuff where they can feel at home. I think that's just a trust thing. It's just building up like, hey, we can have this open line of communications beyond ball. And oh, by the way, I can maybe sneak in teaching a guy a play or two extra off to the side while they're up there, snacking on a honey bun or something. So I would buy all the Garrett McGuire stock. I would. I think he's going to be a very successful coach where at this level or any level as time goes on.
You can't have trust without us. We're talking to Brian Chrisopherson, senior writer for Husker 24/7 at Husker247BC on Twitter. Toss him a follow. All right, BC, let's do this. 10 practices in. If you were handing out the MVP for the first 10 practices, who would receive the award?
From what I've gathered, Gabe Ervin. Ervin, in the first week of spring practice, the whole narrative about the running backs was changed. We knew Gabe Ervin would be a part of things. I mean, he was a guy who was good enough to basically be a starter his first year on campus before the injury. And he's quite a specimen when you're up close to him. You can see why the staff's enamored with him in that way. But just the way that Rule talked about him from the bat and brought him up, multiple times, that competition's ongoing. But I think it was immediately clear that this staff thinks a whole lot of Gabe Ervin. So I would go with him.
How about newcomer of the first 10 practices?
Oh,
could be anybody. A freshman, incoming freshman, or even a transfer.
Yeah, I think MJ Sherman. Now it's not like we hear about him all the time, but when he got up in front of the media and just the way he spoke and sort of like how he sees that he can fit in Tony White's defense, I just think he's sometimes it's easy to get lost and we go look in this direction, that direction for an answer to this. I'm going to go with the guy who came from Georgia that was a big time stud, and I think he's going to have a big part in this defense. So I'll go right there.
You're speaking my my language with those two first guys. Maybe we'll make it a three-peat. How about most improved player over the first 10 practices?
Feel good about this one. I'm going to say Nash Hutmacher, just because he's come up a whole lot on the defensive line. I think he's been a leader of that group with Ty Robinson out and Blaze Gunnerson was out. He's back now, which is good. But Nash, I feel like, is one of those guys who can probably benefit from the new strength and conditioning way of doing things. I think there's a chance that he's going to show that he has more mobility than he was given credit for. I could say the same about Bryce Benhart on the offensive line. I could have answered him maybe. But Hutmacher, it sounds like, just keeps showing up every day. And it might make that move from guy who can give you, 12 to 15 okay snaps and do a certain thing to a guy who can do a lot of different things, and that snap count really goes up.
And I know I gave you a chance to say an MVP, whether it was offense or defense, but I want to now give you a chance to name your offensive player of the first 10 weeks of practice. 10 weeks. I keep saying 10 weeks. First 10 practices, and your defensive player. Give me two.
I'll go Heinrich Harburg on offense, just because spring is a time for guys like Heinrich Harburg where everybody's like sort of dismissed him last year, and it would seem like he's 5th or 6th on the depth chart. And let's go back to a month or so ago, Andrew. We're talking, people are like, what position is he going to play? There was that thought like, where are they going to move him? And I don't hear that at all from this staff, or think that's really a conversation right now. Now, is he like the second guy or the third guy? And when does Casey Thompson get back? And what does that actually look like? Is he a big part of this? I don't know, but I do know that Harburg's getting a true look and has really changed the narrative on him. So that's why he's my answer there.
Yes, more pick there.
Yeah. Let's see. Defense. Who are you thinking on defense?
Yeah, I thought through this a little bit, and I'll probably rest in the secondary just because I still feel like that's the room we feel most comfortable about on defense. Like first it was, hey, we don't know about the line, and then it bled into the linebacker core. But if I had to say somebody, I'd say Hartzog, because a lot of guys are talking about Malcolm. He's a ball hawk. I love that he's undersized and he plays. He plays like a quiet leader. And I also like that too. He's not somebody that's really going to be out there and boast and showboat or whatever, but he's going to be the guy that works hard, puts his head down, and works for the team.
That's a good answer. I'll keep with the theme I sort of had with Harburg of guys that maybe people put to the side and they shouldn't now, is Omar Brown. I feel like he's had the type of spring. Now I think he's had some times where he's been in the green jersey of late. So I don't know if that will slow any of that movement, but didn't seem like a big deal. And he's a guy who I feel like could be that rover spot, or at least have a shot there. And he's come up a few times from coaches. So let's not forget, that's a guy who made a ton of plays and was had All-America credentials at Northern Iowa. I know it's FCS, but he's a guy who can find the football.
All right, my last one, BC, and this one may be a little bit harder because it would be hard for me to choose just one, but your coach of the first 10 practices.
Donovan Raiola.
Oh, that was quick.
Yeah, it is, because I just feel like the whole thing got reset in a hurry on him too. That I guess that's the theme of my answers is guys who really in the last 3 weeks or so, you've kind of, my mind has changed a little bit of like how they fit into the picture. And obviously you knew when Raiola was retained, there was some reason that, Rule and Satterfield really, believed in him. But just the more I hear and the more I watch him, I feel like he's really comfortable in his skin over there with this staff. You talk about a detailed coach when you watch the drills who, like, after every rep, really can dissect it. You know, his mentor is Harry Highstand, who is thought of by coaches as like a coach's coach amongst O linemen. Like, he's just beloved and really respected. That's who Donovan Raiola learned directly from. And I think there's just a lot of trust in what he's doing over there from a guy in Rule who I talked about how he can go be a station-to-station head coach. But I think he told us at one point in his heart of hearts he loves trenches stuff. So the fact that he put a badge on Raiola and said, no, you're the guy I'm keeping amongst all these guys, that was pretty meaningful. And I think over the last month or so, you've seen that he does really fit well with this staff, you know, at least at our passing glance.
There you have it, BC's superlatives through the first 10 practices. I appreciate that. I probably would go Barthel there.
Yeah.
For coach. My last thing for you before I let you go, though, BC, is in regards to recruiting and USC hiring Cliff Kingsbury yesterday officially. I want to gauge your thoughts on the impact that has on Dylan Raiola.
It could. I mean, I guess I would say with USC, if you weren't already like, you know, thinking like Lincoln Riley's a guy who's coached like 4 Heisman winners or whatever the number is at this point, that's one of the big draws of going there. I don't know how much Kingsbury adds to that, but yeah, I mean, he's a guy, anybody who's been like an NFL coach. And I think that's one of the reasons why Rule and his staff can be successful recruiting is I really think that's meaningful to players when you can say, I was just there where you want to be. I know how it's supposed to look and all that. So it might give them a little nudge. You know, I know that it feels like of late, maybe there's been a little loss of momentum and like, can it happen for the Huskers in that one? But that one's been a roller coaster. And so that's all I'd say, Andrew, is we just got to keep riding it until the Riolas land that helicopter and say where they're going. Cause it does feel like that the narrative on where the lean is sort of changes from week to week.
Right. Yeah. It's tough because they were in third place. Like if you really look at like the percentages of where he was kind of leaning based on what recruiting rankings you actually look at. But at the same time, I'm like, man, if I could go play for Cliff Kingsbury, I don't know why I wouldn't. I mean, he just pumps out quarterbacks and good ones.
Well, you shouldn't sleep on him. That's for sure. I mean, that's a place for a QB that any QB is going to look a while there and at least consider it.
BC, I appreciate you, man. Thanks so much for taking some time this morning. We will talk again next week.
All right. Sounds good.
See you, man. Senior writer for Husker 24/7 BC at Husker 24/7 BC on Twitter. Toss him a follow. He's great. All good stuff there from Brian Chrisopherson. When we come back, we are talking with Andy Kendeigh, sports director at KETV, like we do every other week on the show. He's next. Stick around. More coffee and cream here on Hail Varsity Radio.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Actually, I don't think so. So I got to text a few guys yesterday because, OTA started for a couple teams and was just wishing them good luck. And, OTA is a little bit different than this. I think they can only lift and meet. But those guys were jacked up to get back in the building. They go – a lot of them go 3 months from the end of the season to now of not being in that building. So they got some juice going back. And then these guys, right, they're some of them 19, 20 years old. They naturally wake up and have a little bit of juice to them.
The young gun, the young buck, Garrett McGuire once again. We appreciate that audio, courtesy of Hail Varsity's YouTube page and or the Nebraska Huskers YouTube page. Garrett McGuire speaking after practice yesterday. We are chatting about...
How y'all doing?
Yeah, that's him. We are chatting about his age a lot throughout the show. And that question, I think, could be answered pretty well by our next guest. It's Andy Kendeigh at A Kendeigh, KETV on Twitter. AK, sports director at KETV. Andy, good morning.
Good morning, Andrew. Take it easy on me. I've been off for 2 weeks. I get back in the saddle today, though.
Hey, that is fine. Why were you off for 2 weeks again? Just vacay?
Well, we had a vacation. Went to Vegas for a week for Final Four weekend with my brother, and
Wow.
a bunch of at-home honeydew stuff around the house.
Look at you. Look at you. Hopefully
Yeah.
you came back from Vegas with some change in your pockets.
Not as much as I'd hoped.
Ah,
Still.
dang.
It was
Dang.
still a productive weekend. I'll tell you what, though. First time ever that I've been to Vegas and had a sports book light up for women's basketball. The Final Four. We watched the Final Four at a sports book, and it was hanging on every hoop, and it was amazing. It was cool. It was. Everybody was so pro Iowa, and it was eye-opening, to say the least. It was really cool to see people get legitimately excited for women's basketball at the highest level. It was neat to see.
Man, no question. That was by far the best thing that could have happened to women's basketball. That Final Four, that championship game.
And that South Carolina game, too, was even more. And, I don't know how much people were really, huge Iowa fans, but they were Iowa fans that night because they were plus 550. So let's put it to you that way.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hey, I want to ask you this because you've been in this position before where you've done either the hiring or firing, but majority of the times it's more the hiring. But how many times have you taken a chance on a young reporter during your time as sports director?
Well, usually it's the higher ups making the hires. I can only do suggestions, but yeah, there's some times that you got to take a leap of faith and use your experience to say, yes, this person has the tools and we can help this person grow in any walk of life, whether it be in, local TV, it could be in football, it can be in coaching, it could be in teaching, whatever. I know people are hung up on Garrett McGuire. He just looks so darn young. I think he looks like he's a college kid. And I know that, it's striking because I saw him yesterday and I'm like, whoa, man, it is. As long as you can get past that, I mean, he's got obviously some knowledge and everybody's got to start somewhere. And good for Matt Rule just to put the faith in him, and we'll see how it goes. Obviously, there's some pros to hiring a young kid like that. He's obviously relatable to his guys. He's obviously was removed from, he's closer to playing than most of those coaches on that staff have been, you know what I mean? He was in that position just a couple of years ago. And so I think that helps him in that regard. But if you can coach, you can coach. I don't care what age you are. And hopefully that works out for Nebraska.
I'll tell you what, Andy, I'll tell you, there's no way that you guys didn't see Ellie French and just think that she was going to be a home run. There's no way.
I will tell you this. I was looking at resume, YouTube videos, and at the kitchen table one night, and I said to my wife, I said, Wendy, look at this one. Look at this gal. I go, this girl's going to be something. No question. So.
And see, you can spot that. You can take a chance on somebody like her because you know it's going to work out, and that's what I'm just trying to tell people about Garrett McGuire. Coach Rule's been spotting that.
Some people have the it. Some people have it. Ellie has it. Matt Foster has it. So hopefully the wide receivers coach at the University of Nebraska has it. We'll see.
Man, but why do you think people in highly competitive positions like TV, sports reporting, or even coaching take more criticism for their age versus, say, a first-year financial advisor or social media strategist or a more mass-produced job? I mean, it's crazy to me that people just can't see past certain details sometimes.
Well, track record has a lot to do with it, obviously, especially in college football. I mean, if you have a chance to get a guy who may have helped guys to the NFL, I think that's where it really comes down to. But give this Garrett McGuire kid a couple years, and we'll see how it goes. Obviously, Matt Rule. This is where the new head coach needs to get a little bit of leeway. It's his deal. Like his job is on the line with his hires, right? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, who he brings in is a big reason why what the narrative will be 5 years from now, right? So he obviously has confidence in this young man, and hopefully it works out. And he obviously knows Garrett because he basically Garrett grew up around that.
Right,
so
groomed him.
I think, so he sees traits in Garrett that he knows. He's been around successful assistant coaches before, and I think this is where one of those that you say, give it to the head coach. This is his deal, and he can hire whoever he wants, and hopefully it works out. You got to trust the head coach at this point, right?
All right, AK, I'll get off my
Yes,
soapbox
sir.
now. I'll step off that box. We'll talk about something different. I want to ask you about Ashton Murphy and his commitment to Nebraska. He was one of 7 power players our good friend Mike Sauter had on his in-state 2024 watch list. Already another committed to Mizzou, so that left 5 remaining on the list. Here are the names: Caleb Benning, Carter Nelson, Davon Hall, Isaiah McMorris, and Caleb Pyfrom. Answer this first. How big is the commitment of Murphy? And 2, out of those remaining names, how many do you think Nebraska realistically snags?
Well, Murphy's big, and not just because of his talent, but also because of the position he plays. I think Nebraska in the next 2-3 years, you're going to see a sizable transformation of their lines offensively and defensively. And Ashton Murphy is a guy who can help in that transformation, right? 6'5", 240 pounds. And in addition, not only is he an in-state guy, but he's a guy that's from Elkhorn South, and that they're starting to put together a nice little list of the homegrown talented players. They're going from Elkhorn South to Lincoln, and Teddy, Prohaska, and Maverick, Noonan, and now Murphy. So we'll see how that works out. Good for Ashton, and congratulations to the young man. That's probably a big decision, probably the biggest decision of his life, and good for him. And hopefully he enjoys that the whole process, and now he can kind of exhale. Moving forward, I would say, can we go 3?
Yeah, go 3.
I set the over/under at 3.5. Okay, do you take the over or do you take the under?
I take the under. I'd take the
You do?
under. Yep.
Okay.
I would actually say if you set it at 2.5, I'd take the under.
2.5. Okay. Really?
I'd still take the under. I'd go 2. I'm aiming for 2 here.
Okay. I would say I would go 3. I would go 3. And I'm not going to say who, because who knows, but
right.
If you can get 3 out of that group, that'd be a nice little in-state haul, but I think Matt Rule has to get to the point where in-state guys stay in-state, right? Like where we're hitting at 5 or 6 or 7. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And you know what helps? Winning helps.
Yeah, it's a results-driven business.
And establishing a culture of what you're doing. And, right now, everything is in its infancy stages for Matt Rule. I mean, what he's done so far has been outstanding in terms of laying the foundation. But at some point, you're going to need results, and obviously we can't get results until the fall. But right now, I think he's doing a terrific job in showing people what his program's all about. Now, will that translate? We'll see.
AK, let me rush this in. We got about 45 seconds, and these are 2 guys that you covered, Hunter Salas and Trilly Reitzel. If you had to give a percentage, what would the odds be that Hunter lands at Nebraska, Trell lands at Nebraska, and they both end up at Nebraska?
Well, I would hope, personally, selfishly, I would hope 100%. Now, whether that happens, I would say it's probably 25% both of them land there, but we'll see. I think it's a flip of a coin for both those guys. It would be a great deal for Nebraska to get 2 homegrown talented players that we could follow throughout the years here.
Hey, no question. Both starting their official visits next week, and I hope you're right, AK, because that would be a fun Cornhuskers team to watch. Thanks for joining us, man. We'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Andrew.
Andy Kendeigh at Kendeigh, KETV on Twitter. He's the sports director at KETV. Coming up, we will break down more from the press conference. We will talk Husker baseball and Omaha taking down the Huskers again. And then we may even talk Dylan Raiola. That's coming your way.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
I think the minute they sign with us, they have to get they have to get to the unrecruiting, not de-recruited, but they've got to get to the point of now. Okay, now I'm here, right? I see Garrett Nelson working out, and I'm always like, hey, make sure you're in shape now. That Ricky Minicamp comes around, so I think once you go through that process of being recruited, picking your school, now it's about, hey, I want to get there and play. And so coming in and seeing the way that we practice, seeing the things that we do, I think it's good for recruits, it's good for parents, it's good for our players. When they show up eyes wide open. They're not intimidated maybe by hey, what's going to happen tomorrow. They kind of have a feel in their mind of what practice will look like.
Coach Rule talking about recruits when they make their way to Nebraska this spring and beyond. It's not just going to be a short stint. This is going to be a forever thing. Before we get into more talk about recruiting, how about I tell every Husker fan out there where they can get their next piece of game day apparel. Do you want to be game ready? You have to search Alumni Hall wherever you browse, whether that's on your phone, on your laptop. Alumni Hall is your ultimate Husker shopping experience. The best and largest selection of apparel for the whole family. Brands like Adidas, Champion, Columbia. They have gifts. They have accessories. They have things for your tailgating needs. You get 10% off if you're a student, faculty, or military member. When I say student or faculty, you got to be at UNL. But visit the 2 store locations in Lincoln, P Street downtown, or in the South Point Pavilions, or anytime at alumnihall.com. It's where Husker fans shop. That's where you should shop too. And Nebraska is currently shopping for that big named recruit at quarterback. I didn't want to jump right into Dylan Raiola just yet, but I think I'm going to, because Cliff Kingsbury going to USC actually has a greater impact than I think a lot of people realize. I know USC was lower on the list. They kind of, if you really look at the projections, I'm looking at Dylan Raiola's crystal ball predictions right now. USC 22.2%, Nebraska 33.3%, and Georgia at 44.4%. Now, I don't know how updated this is, but this is just what the lead experts have and were saying in regards to Dylan Raiola. But now that Cliff Kingsbury's there, do not discount the fact that may leapfrog USC over Nebraska.
For sure.
Don't discount that. And also, because USC will be joining the Big Ten at some point, and he'll get to play either at Nebraska or against Nebraska at some point. I think this has a greater impact on his commitment than people think. And like I said, interest has been wavering. But here's who Kingsbury has coached up, has tutored, has mentored over the years. Case Keenum, Johnny Manziel, Patrick Mahomes, Baker Mayfield, Davis Webb, Kyler Murray. 6 big quarterbacks.
He's doing a really good job.
6 of the biggest ones. He's highly regarded for coaching some of the best quarterbacks in all of college and NFL. And even though, as I welcome my guy, Damon Benning.
Well, hello.
Even though DB's not a huge Cliff Kingsbury fan, there are people out there that did not like his work in Arizona.
I like him as a coordinator.
And I like him especially more as a quarterback's coach. He is a quarterback savant. And I don't know if Nebraska has a move to match it at this point to Dylan Raiola. And I don't think they need something new either. So don't take that as, hey, I think Nebraska's out of it. I don't think they need to, because they know their identity. Rule said this, and DB will echo it because he's the one that told the story yesterday. He's confident enough in himself to where he can talk about another coach and say, like, yeah, he does some good things.
Mm-hmm.
He won't just say, I don't think you should even, spend some time there. It's not for you. I know what's best for you. That's not who Coach Rule is.
Mm-hmm.
He's confident in his own abilities, and he's not afraid to talk about coaches. You almost wonder if that type of transparency goes further with a recruit rather than the no need to check him out point that I just kind of listed. But Cliff Kingsbury in USC could be dangerous.
Yeah, it's a good tandem, especially, if Kingsbury is the type of guy that can take some of the burden or the burden of time spent with quarterbacks, where if he's a guy that he can trust, considering that they've got a relationship, that frees Lincoln Riley up to do the things that I think are going to complete him as a head coach. Maybe be more involved defensively or whatever that is, right? Where it's just like, oh yeah, if you can do some of those duties, that frees me up to be kind of more of an overseer where we've been deficient. And that's dangerous if that's the way that it goes.
Now, I don't want to branch too far off of this, but I want to ask you how the
it was good. Went. It was good. It was I think they had 11 or 12 athletes, and everybody got to stand up and say where they were going, and had the mic, and what they appreciated, and it was good.
In the gym, I'm assuming?
It was in the auditorium.
Okay.
But it was a nice deal. Miller North's administration was there. Principal was at the front door, the auditorium, and athletic director, and it was good.
I heard it right. Was it Kearney or Christian that she's going to?
Wesleyan.
Yeah, I got it wrong. All three.
So I can't remember them all. There's a Concordia in Iowa. I was wrestling, and Mississippi College, Iowa Western, Valpo, Regis. I don't know. Just putting me to the test. At least I was paying attention.
Yep. You're good. You knew where your daughter was going, and that's all that matters.
Yeah. Pretty proud of that. That's
that's
a big that's a big accomplishment.
Well, not only just for you to celebrate, but for her to celebrate too. I mean, it's a big it's a big family celebration coming out of there. Now, going back to what we were talking about with Dylan Raiola, and say Nebraska said their piece, they dropped a 3. I hate doing hypotheticals, but sometimes
you're talking about if that's what happened,
right? Sometimes I like to speculate if that is indeed what happens, and USC takes over at 2. Is Cliff Kingsbury enough at USC to make you want to go there over Georgia?
I don't know. See, I think you talk about speculating. I think the relationship was already where it was with Lincoln Riley. Like, I know kind of how they felt about Lincoln Riley. So I don't think Cliff Kingsbury enhances that already pretty strong relationship. Right. I think it's just another nice thing.
Okay.
I think what they like about USC, they like. What they don't like, they don't like. I don't think Kingsbury is like the ultimate trump card. Not in his recruitment. I think it would have mattered more maybe if, like, let's say you make that hire at Georgia, that maybe could have got them over the hump if they were trailing because of the affinity that he already has for Kirby Smart. But Kirby Smart doesn't coach quarterback, so the relationship that you want to have with your OCs and quarterback coaches could get you over the top.
Right, and Todd Monken leaving was also something that people speculated in that time. Not to say that again was an end-all be-all.
But I think they like Bobo.
I would assume so.
So
most people do there.
It's either way, I don't think that's a determining factor.
Man, just such a circus clown. Oh no, that's different Bobo.
Yes.
Hey, the thing though that Nebraska has going for them, and we kind of talked about this before the show even started. Their biggest advantage, you get to tell a guy that you, and specifically you, can be the biggest piece to turning around a once great program and making them great again. Not to go all political with former slogans and things like that. But that appeals to the right buyer. And it just depends on if that appeals to Dylan Raiola more than going to a program that's winning now.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's just going to boil down to two things. I think it's timing and the relationships that he can form in a short amount of time with Coach Satterfield. It's still timing, but more specifically the guys on the offensive side of the ball because they're unproven, right? I mean, they have no idea, what Coach McGuire can do on the recruiting trail and acquiring top flight wide receivers that they can play for, right? Or you have no idea if the chance to play for, your dad's school is going to win enough for you to endure what may come with growing pains. I mean, those are serious variables, right? Like, let's not act like they don't exist. Those are big deals. So Nebraska, more than anything, could just be the victim of bad timing, not a bad job. It could just be bad timing, right?
Good point.
If you give it another year, you're probably having a completely different conversation. It could just be a victim of bad timing.
Man, that's a great point. I mean, even give it a couple of years because you're running into a lot of legacies right now in the 2024 class. Mm-hmm. And if you had the success that was once theirs back in, say, 2010, you have something that you can build on and say, hey, we were 8-4 or we were 9-3. You can make us 10-2 and see where that takes you.
Yeah. And I won't get into, the exact what the message was that I talked to Coach Rule about this morning, but he's well aware of that, right?
You have to win in order to win everything else.
He's well aware of needing to give reasons to make Nebraska the place that people already think it is from an entitlement standpoint in their heads. I think he's got that down to an absolute science. He knows exactly what he's dealing with.
Hey, when we come back, we're talking to a former teammate of yours.
Yeah, got a big event this Friday.
Former center and of the, I should say, cherished Nebraska pipeline.
There it is.
He's next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning.
Hey, welcome back. 9 o'clock hour here on Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency, alongside my guy, Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. We are live from the H&H Chevrolet stage at Hail Varsity Club. Catch us on 590 ESPN Omaha, live on Twitter, live on YouTube. If you missed any part of the show, go back, listen to the podcast. That's Hail Varsity Radio, wherever you get your podcasts. And we are now on KFOR in Lincoln as well. As we continue the show, I want to bring in a special guest. He's a former teammate of Damon Benning, Aaron Graham, former center of the Nebraska Pipeline, two-time national champion in 94 and 95. Aaron, good morning.
Morning, guys. How are you?
Teddy Grahams, what's up, buddy? Good morning to you.
Grahams.
Right,
Good
you
day, man.
You too. You too. We got a message from Doc. You know what? Because he's busy, providing anesthesia for folks. He told us to tell you that you need to get a real job.
Oh man, what do you say to a guy like that? You know,
I don't know. It uses a lot of big words, right? I don't know.
I guess you have to take him serious more than half the time, right? He's too smart to not say, maybe I do need a real job. I don't know.
Straight out of a textbook.
So how you been, man? How are things? You recovering? Got the place kind of put back together, doing life again, enjoying the fam?
We are. Things are good. Just kids are growing, and 4 of them, 23, 21, 16, and 10, and living in Gretna. Just enjoying life. No complaints.
Aaron, big event coming up next Friday. It's a reunion before the spring game here at Hail Varsity Club. Take a moment, tell us about the event.
Yeah, we're super excited. The original Pipeline guys, myself, Rob Zadisko, we were just talking about, Brendan Stye, Zach Wiegert, Joel Wilkes will all be at the Hail Varsity 6 to 9 next Friday night. Celebrating some of the legacy of the Pipeline, and most importantly, the purpose for us doing this, and it's really our first event where we're doing something public, is we're gonna take a concerted effort to try and raise some money, whether if it ends up being for NIL, for scholarships, for what have you. But we feel like we don't want to sit on the sidelines. We can sit there and want and dream and hope to keep adding better players and what we remember about our great beloved university. And so we're gonna start selling a few items, raising some money, and we're gonna plan to give back and continue to hope to bring in talent such as like myself from Texas and Brendan from California and all the many great players who came from far away. It's just a different time. It's crazy. We talk about it often, just don't even know what it would have been like 25 years ago to be in the situation that the current players are finding themselves, not just in Nebraska, in college football altogether, college sports. Yeah, but there seems like a pretty good opportunity to do something, so we're going to do it.
AG, stay right there just for a sec, because you talked about California and Denton and a couple guys local, Lincoln East and Fremont with Wiegert. Do you think that's how is that easy to replicate? Is that kind of what we're after, where you can kind of get a core group from right around that radius and sprinkle it in with some high end guys to kind of culminate things? Is that kind of the vision? Because I think at that time we didn't even really think of it like that. We just were like, there's some big guys, man, a lot of good players. I can't believe that you're the smallest one from Texas, but like that's really about what we thought, right? Did anybody give it much more thought than that?
It was a different time for sure, Damon, but I think the reality of it is, I'm just being completely honest. When I sit back and I look at not only the group, that 94 offensive line, but there was the group I played with after that was exceptional. I believe we had 3 All-Americans on that line, including an Outland Trophy winner and Aaron Taylor.
The other little guy from Texas.
Yeah, right down the road from where I grew up. But it's hard to say, look, we want to try to duplicate that. Those were unique times, unique people, unique coaching. Sure. But if there's one thing that we can see as former players, we know what we'd love to see, what you'd like, the type of talent you need to be able to get back to the championship caliber. And it's been a long, I'll call it frustrating haul for the last couple decades, just seeing, even from my former coach, Bill Callahan was my offensive line coach with the Oakland Raiders, and Bill loved big guys. He loved, big, huge guys. And the difference about the Pipeline group and I think these other lines is we were all athletes. I mean, if there's one thing we could do, you can attest to that, Damon, is, we could run, we could block, we were aggressive, we were smart, we did all that stuff. And I think there's some limitations, because certainly we had other guys in our locker room that were maybe bigger than us, or not many, I would say, but the fact is that, there's a type of athlete that I think can work it in any offensive scheme. And that's the guy you see that's 6'5" and could play basketball, along with playing football. And, that's the type of athletes we were. And that's what I personally would love to see back out on the field.
God, that's a fantastic point, AG, because there were really only what I would call two big guys. And I think that was Sty and Rob. Like, they were big guys. Everybody else was kind of svelte and like slimming. Like, Wiegert wasn't a big guy then, and you were undersized, and Buddha wasn't a big guy. You guys kind of picked on him like he was the runt. So I saw Orlando Pace in Madison last Thursday, and he's lost a considerable amount of weight, right? He looks like a basketball player. And so I asked him, I go, what's interesting? In the mid-90s, like a lot of those big hulking left tackles, the Flozell Adams and some of those guys, it's like, do you think you guys could have played now? And do you know what he said to your point? He said, I'd like to think I could have as a big guy, because it was all about being a good athlete.
Yeah.
Like that's how he landed the plane. And so to hear you say that, is it because of the styles of offense? Is it because of what you saw be successful being out in space? Like, how are you making that correlation? Like, just be a good athlete.
Oh, it's just, I mean, when you get down to the basics of being an offensive line, if you're going to play left tackle, you got to be able to move your feet. You got to be able to use your hands. You have to be able to do all those things that you'd be a great defensive basketball player, right? And you take a guy like, Zach Wiegert, I was just thinking, we did a photo shoot 3 years ago, and Johnny Rogers there, Mike Rozier, but we were in this cornfield, and it was a pipeline and those guys, and it was in somebody's backyard out in rural Nebraska, and we were walking back through the individual's yard, and there's a basketball hoop, and there's a basketball sitting there, and I turned to Wiegert and I said, you can't dunk anymore, just kind of teasing him. And he was 49 years old. And he picked up the basketball and he slam dunked it. And I'm just like, dude, that's the type of athlete you're talking about, right? I mean, it's like, go play tennis with Brendan Sty sometime, and good luck, like you and today, and that's what we did when we played together. We all brought different talents, but it's like we all tried to compete with each other so much that, as you go into the weight room and you're working out with Brendan and all of us, and the bench press started at 225, and then you went to 315, and like they're still warming up. I'm like going, dude, I can't. This is like, and then they go to 405, and then Brendan's putting 5 plates on each side, and 495 pounds, and I'm like, those are not only just athletes, they're strong athletes, right? I mean, they've got skills. And again, you're not going to find those type of guys everywhere, but it certainly worked for us. And I just can't get enough of just watching, old highlight tapes and running 48 counter sweep and watching Stein Wiegert come around the corner, and like, goodness gracious. I mean, just the athleticism and Zach really wasn't a small guy either. I mean, you may not reference him as a big guy, but 6'5", 315 pounds, and could run and tried to hurt you every single time he blocked you. I mean, that's what was so special about it, Damon. And I'd love to see it recreated. I don't know that we may see that particular group. I think it was just too special.
Aaron, I love the stories that you tell, and I'm sure you're going to tell a lot of stories too next week with the people that you talk to. But I kind of want to ask you this, because you've played with what I can gauge, a lot of big personalities on that team, whether it was on the line itself or, T. Frage or Phillips or whoever it was. Can you give me some insight into maybe like the best story you have of a player that you played with that because of their personality, it will always last as a core memory for you?
Oh my gosh. I mean, like thousands. Maybe a couple. I just when you were saying that, I was thinking about Matt Turman coming in the huddle at Kansas State and the pressure that could be on his shoulders. Yet he had the best offensive line in the country. He had Lawrence Phillips as a running back, and he got in the huddle and he was ready to call the play. And Brendan grabbed him by the face mask and said, "Just get the snap." And that's what he told him. Just get the snap. And Will Turman's looking. And then Matt went to go call the play. And when he went to call it, he couldn't see over me. So I had to bend down, and I was bending all the way at the waist so he could look over to call the play so people could hear because he was so little. To this day, he has and forever will have our respect at the utmost because when you got, your one shot in life when it's like they called your number. And, it's been a long time since I've even, thought about that, but what that means. But Matt Turman went in there and dominated. But Brendan grabbed him by the face mask and said, "Get the snap. That's all you got to worry about." And that was it. It was kind of like, you don't need to do anything. Just get the ball, hand it off. We got it.
So you got a 20. You got two olders. They're in the 20s, right? And so they're kind of in this wheelhouse. What happened? Do you think where we lost the ability to kind of have peer-to-peer correction, where somebody of your age that's doing what you want to do can say something to you, and you receive it, because it's for the greater good? Like, am I lamenting too much, or does it seem like we've gotten away from, because we hear coaches say it all the time, "Oh man, the great teams are player led," but man, sometimes I see guys this age and they don't like for other guys to correct them.
Yeah, it's hard to speak, to exactly what it's like today. I mean, you referenced that having the two 20-year-olds, and it's a different time, man. It really is. I mean, it seems like you got to worry about people's feelings getting hurt. And then more importantly, I was talking to, the last several offensive line coaches, and they're all dealing with the same issue. Look, if I don't get this guy out there, he's going to leave, and I was talking to Steid just a couple months ago, and we were talking about this. And I said, if they had the transfer portal, you and I would have never played together. He said, "No, that wouldn't happen." I said, "You backed up Will Shields till your junior year. You didn't even get on the field. Can you imagine that?" And so, and Brennan, and he thought about it. He goes, "Yeah, you're probably right." I said, "I know I'm right." I said, "I never would have got the chance to play with you if the transfer portal was there." And when you talk about the type of individual, Brendan was not really a yes man to Coach Tennifer, right?
No.
He was long haired. You remember, he kind of did his old deal.
He was the California kid. I thought he was mean spirit. I thought he was like, between he and Zach, I just were like, these guys aren't like nice people. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And down deep, of course they are. They're all big teddy bears, just like me. But they're unique to the world. They really are. That's what made that group so special, is the five of us, just from all of different walks of life, but we had a common goal, and that was to just beat the crap out of everybody who lined up in front of us and win a national championship. And it was the main reason I came to Nebraska. People ask me, well, what swayed your decision? Well, I went to the Texas schools, grew up in Texas, went to A&M and UT and Texas Tech, and was visiting those, went to Oklahoma, and then made the decision to go check out Nebraska. When I got to Nebraska, I think this is really kind of an interesting point in today's environment. I went there and I said, man, I told my parents, I said, they had the best facilities out of any of them. Right. But the difference was that they were a top 10 team. And I think that's a big deal right now, because we got these amazing facilities, but man, you got to get a winner out there, right, to really draw that. But my
that's a great point.
I was standing down there. I can't remember who was there. It may have been Doak or something. I don't know why Doak would be showing it. Somebody was showing me down in the pit, and we were down in the pit, and I'm looking at these guys and I'm asking them, I said, "Who's 56? Is he a senior?" And he was like, "No, he's a true freshman. His name's Rob Zadisko." I'm like, "He's a freshman?" I was like, who's 66? What is he, a junior or something like that? He's a true freshman. He's from California, Brendan Stein. Well, who's 72? Well, that's Zach Wiegert. He's a freshman. And went down the line, and you're like, they're all freshmen. And I'm like, man, and I watched them, and I could see how nasty they were being freshmen. They didn't know what they were doing. But I was like, man, that's a special group. and that really helped sway my decision to say, that's what I want to play. I mean, I'm the type of person that wants to surround myself with the people like that. I want it to all be on me. I'd much rather share the love, share the glory of what you can do. And I think they were all pretty much like-minded that way.
That's fantastic. I listening to Coach Rule, and I had to question myself a couple times, AG, because I've been burned, and I'm like, God, I want to be all in, right? But he's singing all the right notes in terms of accountability and toughness and competitiveness, and people doing things the same way and looking the same. And it sounds kind of archaic, but I can't help it. I hear him, and I think I know his heart, and I'm like, I think I'm all in, right? Like he's showing me all the things that you want to see before you even have the opportunity to snap the football.
Yeah, well, I've been impressed. There's no doubt about it. But honestly, I've got a guarded heart right now because it's been a long road, of painful times that we've had to go through, and just makes you want to vomit, But I'm excited for him. At the same time, I'm not going to create any type of false expectations. I'm just going to, if he is what we think he is, then he's going to be able to deliver, really, hopefully a new product. It's what we're looking for. I would say that I was down at practice a couple weeks ago on a Saturday. They had former players down. I don't know if you were down there, DB, but I had a chance.
How did I not see you?
Line. Yeah, I ran into Sty, of course, and we were like two schoolgirls over in the corner talking, and the offensive linemen were, they came up to us and we talked, and I said one question. I said, "Do you like it? Because they obviously know Donovan Raiola, they had him, but do you like Coach Rule?" And it wasn't a fake. It was like, oh yeah, like they really liked what was happening, and I could tell it was genuine. And so I think that's a good start, but. I just can't wait till they can show us something on Saturdays that we can really get excited about.
We're talking to Aaron Graham, former center, two-time national champion in 94 and 95, part of the original pipeline. Aaron, what about Trev being AD? Did you ever think you'd ever have a teammate overseeing athletics at the university?
You know what, Andrew, we knew that Trev Alberts was going to be the AD at Nebraska when we were there. It was kind of a joke that, we knew he wanted to
be was the golden boy.
And we knew it. I mean, we knew that he was going to be there. So, no, it wasn't surprising. But I ran into Trev at Zach Wiegert's Hall of Fame induction. He flew out for it, and I talked to him. I said, man, I didn't get a chance to be at Coach Rule's, press conference, or to watch it live, rather. And I said, I went back and watched it a couple days later, and I said, you said one sentence in there that I knew we were going to be okay. And that's when he said, I wanted to go and find somebody who was tough. Mm-hmm. And what this program is lacking right now is toughness. And DB, I know he's a little bit older than you, and you didn't have the chance to experience the 2 or 3 years that I did with Trev. But Trev,
just my last one, and it was miserable.
Yeah, as genuine as Trev, is, and when Trev's talking about being tough, it's kind of like, do you listen? Because the dude won the Buckus. The dude could turn it on and whatever he wanted. An unbelievable athlete. But when you're pointing out what we're lacking is toughness, and I got goosebumps, and I said, I agree. I absolutely agree. Like, what happened to where it's just mean and nasty? And think about the defensive guys that he played with, from Ed Stewart to Travis Hill to John Perella. And that was what spun off.
He got the nasty version of Raymakers.
That's right. And it's like, where did that go? And that's what having Coach Osborne as your coach, right? Think about that. You had Kevin Raymakers who's spitting on people and, whatever. And that happened when Coach Osborne was there, and he'd wait till Coach Osborne wasn't looking, and all of them, but it was mean and nasty and tough. And I love that about Trev pointing that out. And I hope he kind of is, sharing that. Certainly Coach Rule's been around enough to know and understand what that is. But to really understand what mean and nasty and tough was at Nebraska in the 90s, I'm hoping he's showing him examples and introducing him to people.
How much you're the perfect guy to ask, because you were such a technician. In our offense, The running style kind of changed a little bit, right? Like he would tinker with it. Some weeks 54, 56 draw would be in. Some days it would be about 47, 43 dive. Sometimes it was draw, base, whatever, right? 32, 38 trap versus 32, 38 roll.
Mm-hmm.
How much does, even though it's similar, how much does play calling type or play calling mindset help an offensive line be who they're supposed to be?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Certainly, even in the pros, you could be with the team where your left tackle is just way more dominant than your right tackle. And there's ways that the protection can be slid to be able to help that, right? So that you can not leave your one tackle on the island and the guy who's making the big bucks can fight on his own. It's been, in some teams, their left tackle may not be as healthy or not as good as what you would expect. So there's definitely some plays that play calling that can impact that. But when you step back and at the end of the day, it is, if you're an offensive lineman and you're being coached correctly, then you should be able to block any scheme, whatever it is, right? And so to me, it doesn't matter. And I know that's a mindset of a lot of players who've played the game anywhere as offensive line. And I look at Jason Kelsey just from this past season, the Eagles center, and maybe 6'1", maybe 270 pounds. And you talk about a technician and strong and all those things. I mean, just manhandling people, but he knows how to block all the schemes. And I know that it can be done. That's a 9-10 year veteran. You know what I'm saying? But it's still like in today's game, I can't believe how far ahead even the linemen come to a program with what they're knowing and what the difference was. I didn't learn how to play offensive line until about my third year in the NFL, right? And my offensive line coach who drafted me with Arizona Cardinals said, you ain't going to be any good till about your third or fourth year. And, I started 7 games my rookie year, and still I agree. I mean, I learned so much, during that period, but these guys are, maybe by their senior year in high school, college, they're about a third year NFL vet, just from situational football, knowing, positioning with hands or feet, so I don't know. I look at it like certainly play calls, you can do it to favor the talent, and they will do that. But if you're asking me, I want to see all 5 guys be able to block whatever is asked of them.
I would like to see it too.
Listen, AG, we don't do it near enough, and you're everybody's favorite. So we got to get you out more, man. I know the family keeps you busy, but God, you never disappoint. Just an amazing person, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Aaron.
Same. Great talking to you guys, and would love to do it anytime.
Yep, we'll see you Friday.
We will.
Okay.
Aaron Graham, former center from the Nebraska Pipeline. Coming up next, we will talk Husker and Omaha baseball. That's here next.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 5 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds.
Not really. I think football is football at the end of the day.
Coffee and Cream with Rogers and Benning on Hail Varsity Radio.
Not really. I think football is football at the end of the day. Not much changes in that aspect of being on the field. I think once you're out there playing, you feel like yourself again and stuff like that. But I think it's been pretty easy to get adjusted again, and it just feels good overall to be back out there just playing.
Feels good to see you too, IGC.
I'm kind of a fan.
Coffee and Cream in the morning on Hail Varsity Radio, powered by Currency. Damon Benning, Andrew Rogers. We're going to split this segment into two. We're going to start off with baseball, and then we're going to hit some recruiting as well. Omaha does it again. They own midweek games. They really do. What are they, 4-1 now on the season? They may not have a winning record in the Summit League. They may not have a winning record overall. But, boy, can they beat teams inside the state midweek. I'll put my money on Omaha.
It's unbelievable. Just their ability to handle the teams in state. It's like and
the way they came out in this game.
Dude, that was on the road.
5-0.
Nebraska has to really too early. I asked this last week, and I got to ask it again. Do you pull the plug on Clarkey?
Yes. Yeah.
I gotta stop calling him Clarkey too, but it's not a young kid on C squared on Caleb Clark. Just because
I think you have to. I mean, what they did.
You hear I'm trying to speak it into existence. Right. Oh man, he battled through the last couple innings, he got through the 2 innings last week, and he was in trouble, and Bolt left him out, and it's going to be good psychologically. I mean, he just needs more time to develop.
I think so. early runs by your opposition are killing your team.
Yeah, and he had a couple of. Nebraska didn't play great defense early, but you can't walk people either.
No.
Right? I mean, so there's definitely some give and take there.
And it was the extra base hit that was benefiting Omaha.
Yeah.
It was Noah Grice's triple in the first inning. It was then Mike Bovey's fly ball to left field that somehow found its way to leave the yard. That dude is strong.
Hey,
he is a big boy.
He talks intense. How about his second at bat? It's going to kind of fly under the radar. It made him 2 for 2. He just spanked the ball into the outfield. He's such a he's a good hitter. Him knowing where he can handle pitches and making you pay is unbelievable. He may
His
only
smarts are insane.
He may only see 2 or 3 hittable pitches in that at bat, and he's getting good barrel on it.
And that's all he'll swing at too.
He doesn't miss those.
He doesn't chase pitches either.
That's what he's just he
so
reminds me a
smart
lot
about
of Anderson in that regard, where they make you pay because they know their zone so well. Right? You don't hit the ball the opposite field like Max Anderson does without great command of the strike zone. Right? I mean, he's got good power going the other way too. So it's like I just like watch. He just spanks that thing out in the center field, and it's like this guy's a good hitter.
And Charlie Bell was able to match the intensity of Nebraska early on in that game too, because when Max Anderson came up to the dish, had a chance to do some damage, Charlie Bell strikes him out. He made the pitch. Max Anderson doesn't strike out.
No. And
I was the guy with an OPS of 1.245. He doesn't strike out.
Yeah, the point came after the one. For those of you playing at home. The weird thing is, and I was kind of on Nebraska early for runners left on base, but Omaha is saying, hold my Gatorade. You know how many runners Omaha left on base?
Very few.
It's
I don't know.
11.
Wow.
Right? That didn't seem like that, did it? Nebraska left 9, and it seemed monumental.
And it always will seem that way when you don't put up runs until the 5th inning.
Isn't it weird how that it messes with your psyche?
If you have a big lead, who cares if you leave a runner on second and third?
God, they left 11 on base. It didn't.
I didn't look up that number.
No, so the one thing that warmed my heart, my big takeaway last night, warmed my heart.
Stats.
See Drew Christo be efficient.
Nice.
You talk about a guy I'm hoping. Boy, he looks worse with every interview. Heupel. Tennessee must be eating good in the neighborhood, man. I know, squirrel. It's just weird. I saw this big old head.
Yep.
I'm like,
and the orange.
I'm like, man, Josh. But as we're watching quarterbacks be broken down, and then Hooker is on deck. But I was shocked to see that Omaha left 11 on base.
Mm-hmm. Well, that shocked me because I would have thought it was few just based on the small portion of the game that I could watch live. I had to go back and watch bits and pieces because I was in the midst of a meeting for about 2 hours there, taking up my afternoon. But also solid relief pitching down the stretch for Omaha once the game got tied. Wyatt Sellers, he didn't sell. He came in, he pumped 7 pitches, got a couple of strikeouts, and then ultimately got the pop-up to close the game. Did you ever think, though, and we'll do this quickly before we move forward, did you ever think that Omaha was going to lose that game?
No.
I didn't think so either, even when Nebraska tied it.
Oh, I didn't. It's kind of a weird feeling to have, but I'm back to being on the fence, right? I just said last week, maybe this is the Belgian in me, the waffle. But bro, why am I kind of iffy again on Shanneman? I just wanted him to be
over, flip it back,
right?
Flip it
I
over,
just feel like I'm
back.
kind of waffling. I just don't know.
It's hard to feel great about some of the names that we're familiar to. That's really all it is.
But I do, and I know Christie is taking some heat the last 3-4 weeks, but their pitching numbers nationally aren't bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like team ERA, their WHIP, like it's not a bad staff. Situationally though, when it comes to closing things out, they're just not good. They're just not. They need a clutch guy,
They need a Tommy Steyer,
a guy that's going to drop the hammer right when they have the opportunity. Because on paper, it should be a good baseball team.
You felt good about him coming into the year, I still feel good about him.
It should be a good baseball team.
Anytime on the weekend, I feel great about him.
You know, I'm a big interview guy. I was surprised, but not surprised, to see Bovee move on right away to the big one against Dakota this weekend. Right? He's over it. He's like, yeah, well, you know, we got a big one in conference this weekend that we got to get, and I just was like,
because he knows the importance of some of his play.
Yeah, right. It's
he knows that. How much that
and this is after you had just ran through the state schools, or not the state schools, your schools in state,
in-state schools.
So it's like, this guy is all about his business. But I'm concerned about what to do with Clark.
On YouTube here, the moment Nebraska started a midweek game, I knew Omaha was winning. That's funny. We say that a lot here. Also on YouTube, though, earlier on when I was talking to Andy Kendeigh, Ingwerson was brought up about getting an offer yesterday. Yeah. And the reason I didn't bring him up was because he's not committed. Like, he's committed elsewhere. He got the offer. I get it. Manchester, good call there. But DB came back and said the same thing. Like, hey, man, let's talk recruiting because I have something I want to ask you. What did you want to ask?
So I just think it's interesting. And you're new enough where you can give me a fresh take, not a hot take, just a fresh take. So the story kind of is the narrative. If Nebraska wants a guy, they need to be the first to offer when it comes to schools nationally, because historically they've come across as not really valuing in-state guys enough, right? So obviously Pitt goes first. I know the fact. Shoot, I just talked to Mike yesterday. It's Eric's dad, and I know they love Pitt, right? And I don't. It's kind of how I want people to treat like people around, you know, like Christian Jones or Tyson Terry or Caleb, for instance, right? My own kid. I try not to get into the, hey man, where are you leaning? Hey, what are you thinking? Until it comes kind of down to it. So it's not like I'm pitting one against the other, but I do know they love Pitt, right? Because I talked to him last week about the decision and what he thought.
Football program.
Narduzzi's I get it. He's kind of gruff and he's a little rough around the edges, but he is a straight shooter. And I think that's what, they like that too. And so I just wondered without asking, I'm like, man, you've said yes. Is Nebraska, do they do enough? Will they want to do enough to have enough stroke to pull him out of that pit? Because you know what's funny? I asked about Ingerson. I asked Coach Rule about Ingerson. This was almost a month ago on a Sunday. Remember when I went down there? Mm-hmm. And he said, yeah, my guys are on me, right? I know Pitt's offered. He goes, we can't panic. We got to do our due diligence. Get him down here and he's the guy. I didn't name him by name, but he's the guy that I was talking about when he said, I want somebody to come to Lincoln, see if they can be around us, watch a practice, then we'll know. I can't panic. I have to do my due diligence. He did his due diligence and he made the offer.
We'll play two for you next, and then I'll touch on a few more thoughts. Stick with us.
Rogers and Benning will be back in 4 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 3 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 2 minutes. Rogers and Benning will be back in 1 minute. Rogers and Benning will be back in 30 seconds. Coffee and Cream on Hail Varsity Radio with Andrew Rogers and Damon Benning. Now one of Damon's favorite games and one of Shane's favorite games.
Is this the game where I have to write stuff down?
Well, maybe not so much Shane.
Yes, Shane. This would be the game.
Yes, it's 2 for you.
All right, let's do it.
Wow.
Hey, we'll play 2 for you here in a moment, but DB's initial question was, do I feel like Nebraska has to be first?
Yeah.
In regards to recruiting, I don't.
That's
I
weird.
really don't think so. And you kind of brought up a great point going into the break, how Rule likes to take his time, be efficient.
And his words were, he said, you know, we got to process. Like, I can't rush the process.
And I don't think
I almost went into character and was doing his voice, but I'm not going to.
I think there is some truth to being too late, but I don't think you have to be first. If you're in the mix, you're one of the early offers, you're fine. But if you drag your feet and then all of a sudden you try to play catch up, then it's a problem. But I don't think you have to be first.
I don't know. I just ask, and I felt like you had a fresh enough perspective. Like you're not tainted, right? You know, people wonder with a lot of these guys in 2024. You know, are they first? Were they first? You know, what have you? And it's just like, I don't know. But the more I'm in this process, because it seems like in the last 2 weeks, and I know we got to play the game. It seems like, and I asked this question to a couple of our recruiting guys. I don't know if I'm definitely not trying to speak this into existence, but I am wondering. It seems like somewhere Nebraska's lost momentum and nothing's happened really.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, I talked about a couple, linebacker, he commits to Madison.
Yep.
And I know, that was Nebraska's guy, and whatever we feel about Raiola. So I get some of that. I think we lost an old lineman that Nebraska was in for. But if you pit that against the conversation that we had earlier, right? Coaches and early texts and stuff, I'm pretty sure Nebraska's well aware of what's going on too, right? I think they want to give their coaching to give recruits a reason to come here, which is why I talk about the timing with Raiola, right? Like they know that it's more advantageous if they're winning.
They'd be, I hate to use the word dumb, but dumb to think otherwise.
If you're 3-7 against Minnesota, you don't think Minnesota should out recruit you?
Probably true.
No, I
100% true.
Like I think that he's acknowledging that though, right? He does not make excuses. He attacks his weaknesses. Right? And they want to win. And they'll figure it out.
And I just think they know the message they want to share with their recruits. And if they come in a little bit later, it's not the end of the world because they did their due diligence, and they'll tell the recruit that, hey, we may not have been first, but we've seen you. We've been watching.
Yeah.
That's all the recruit needs to know. Shane, you got the music? Yeah, let's play the game. 888-638-4876 if you'd like to win some Hail Varsity Club gift cards. Take the family out, get a free meal. Keep doubling down. We'll get 4 in a row, and I'll prove it to you right now. DB and I will play. We'll wait for a caller. If we get one, hey, great. If not, no big deal. 2 for you, sponsored by Dingman's Collision Center.
I want to win.
If you have a problem with your car, yeah, maybe we should.
Shane got the cheeseburger pizza yesterday. He said it was fantastic.
Does Shane use a gift card? Does Shane have gift cards?
I do not. I mean,
technically,
Shane, how many pieces did you eat yesterday, real quick?
I ate half of it. I think it was either 3 or 4. I was trying to think about that today, if it was a 6 or an 8, but I ate half of them.
You knew that question was going to be asked, so you had to get that down.
He said, I may have to have some of this right now before I get home.
Yeah,
I did.
His gift card is your credit card and my credit card because he picked John Rahm.
Right.
All right, we'll go first here, DB, you and me, and let's get 4 for 4.
Let's
go. Ready?
Yep.
A way to get on base in baseball.
Okay.
A Vince Vaughn movie.
Okay. Just glad I know who that is.
Same. I'm horrible with actors and actresses. A character in Toy Story.
Okay.
And a lower body exercise.
Okay.
I feel okay about these.
I'm a little concerned about Toy Story.
Okay. Here we go. Shane, you're going to do our countdown. You have the ding ready and the car crash ready.
Do you know what I could do with $40 here?
A lot. Although you could only feed about 2.5 people in your family. And I say half because Zoe's only 4.
I always trade for budgeted items, baby.
All right, let's get this going. A way to get on base in baseball.
3, 2, 1.
Single.
A type of hit?
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing.
What if I just I thought you meant hit, walk, hit by pitch?
Yeah.
I had hit down.
So maybe. Gosh,
why would you be so specific?
I don't know. I feel like I was just going terminology like single, double, triple. But hit makes sense.
If Shane said hit, you know it's easy. Do you know how much
talked too much
consternation
through it.
last week caused with the streets?
Oh my gosh, it had people talking for weeks. Not really, days.
Dude, the LQ Maple thing?
And there were people saying like, hey, center is not one of the most popular. And then there were others saying like, no, I'm going to bat for center. Like, center's how I get on base.
So one thing I did figure out, Q is not the right answer.
Okay.
Because remember, I kind of threw out Q because most everybody said L before Q,
and then people said Maple before L before Q.
Yeah,
and I said center.
That's all right. We won't.
Well, there's a lot of businesses that are on the L Street, the exit or whatever. So people hear that kind of stuff on the radio all the time.
Shane, do we accept single with a hit?
Hey,
or
Mama Rogers says it's the same. All I'm saying.
All right, we'll go with it.
We'll count it.
Yeah, she is cool. Let's go with it. I lack objectivity.
About my mom, or
yeah, because I like if I didn't like her, I'd say, what does she know?
That's fair. Fair enough. All right, a Vince Vaughn movie.
3, 2, 1.
Old school.
Okay.
That's tough.
I had Wedding Crashers.
That was hard.
That was a tough one.
Dodgeball's good though. Yeah, those are probably the 3 right there.
Old school, Dodgeball, and Wedding Crashers. Yeah. What was the one where he broke up with Jennifer Aniston?
Oh, that was the breakup.
Oh, duh.
That's a great movie.
It's okay.
Nah, I think it's pretty funny.
You could throw
like
swingers in
I
there
just like
too,
how
if you're-
savage he is.
Yeah, he's a trip.
Yeah. All right, 1 for 2. Maybe a half a point for 2. A character in Toy Story.
3, 2, 1.
Buzz. Woody. When you said I don't think we're going to get it right, I knew I wrote it down wrong.
I worried about that one because it was 50-50. Mm-hmm. And the only reason I went with Buzz is because Buzz has his own spinoff.
Okay. I just went with the main character of Toy Story.
God, weird. This
next to Andy, I guess.
I forgot that kid's name.
Hey, on the bottom of the boot.
I went with Ken because he was funny in Toy Story 3. So
Ken. Well, that is the wrong answer.
That's about as specific as single.
Actually,
Ken. Who says Ken?
I don't know.
Wasn't he the corrupt one that stole, like, was part of the bad guy?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Why are you rolling with Ken?
I had Woody down, but that's okay.
So you lied to us.
Yes, I did.
It's all about being anatomically correct.
Yep. All right, we might as well just throw this one in there because this was it did not go the way we planned.
It was kind of hard though.
Yep, a lower body exercise.
3, 2, 1.
Squats. Okay, we're back.
Man,
loosen up.
I'm glad nobody played with us.
Yeah, we would be taking our car to Dingman's right now after that game.
Or with hurt feelings, maybe to Dyer Law.
That's true too.
If you're looking for some professionals to help you because you've kind of been through it, you need to see the folks at Dyer Law. They're trusted professionals, and they'll always take good care of you. You can give them a call at 402-393-7529 or visit them at dyer.law.
Let's do one more with Shane. Shane's playing.
Got to go quick then.
DB, you're playing with Shane.
Okay, roll.
You guys ready?
Yeah.
A popular airline.
Okay.
An appetizer at Hail Varsity Club.
Okay.
A pitcher, Shane, hopefully you know this, on the Mets.
Oh,
that's
gosh.
too hard?
This can it be of all time?
It can be of all time. That's fine, too.
They'll only know one. Okay.
If it was us, I'd say active. And a piece of playground equipment.
Okay.
You good, Shane?
All right, let's do it.
All right. A popular airline. 3, 2, 1.
United.
Did you write that down or did you just repeat?
I don't know.
That means he didn't say United. You said Southwest, didn't you, Shane?
I said TWA.
Thank you for being on. I've been around him long enough.
Yeah, I knew.
Because he doesn't lie, so he's gonna say, I don't know. Fine. TWA, really?
Out of American?
Are they even still doing anything?
I don't know. I don't ever
Does
fly.
TWA exist?
No.
I don't ever fly.
Unless
so.
they merged into something else. I have never seen a TWA flight.
All right, we got to roll through these.
Anywhere. An appetizer at Hail Varsity Club. 3, 2, 1.
Onion
Wings.
Oh my god! I said wings.
Did you?
Yeah,
I thought it started with an R.
No, he said onion rings.
Oh yeah,
I said onion.
Onion wings. Yep, sure.
Boy, we are not good today.
Pitcher on the Mets.
Of all time, Shane.
3, 2, 1.
Good.
Not Gooden.
Thank goodness.
So when I knew it, like I had to
Well, you
think
could
like
have Tom Seaver or something. You
That's
know.
a good one.
that
too.
would have been stretching.
Ron Darling.
Oh gosh, Sid Fernandez.
Sid Fernandez.
Ricky
but
Aguilera.
that's about as far as I can go right there.
All right, guys. Final clue. Final prompt. A piece of playground equipment. You got this, Shane. You're there at the park every day. 3, 2, 1.
Merry-go-round.
Merry-go-round. That's how we end. That's it. We're done today. Throwing in the towel.
Okay.
Shane, we're done. We're out.
Onion rings and merry-go-round.
I mean, the swing. You got the
Slide.
The swings are probably the most popular, but I think slide is the right answer.
Dude said merry-go-round. Why so many words?
Why not jungle gym?
And where's the merry-go-round at a playground? Isn't it a tire swing?
Dude, TWA doesn't even exist.
What
happened?
But he's never flown.
United Airlines.
Wow.
Oh,
yeah, I've never flown, so I mean, I actually had to think about that. I had to get that on the back end.
Great way to end.
Unreal.
Thank goodness we're calling it here.
Man. It's going to be Thirsty Thursday after this one.
Yep. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tomorrow.